We have already established in the introduction of this series that there is a link between our spiritual health and our practical life. So let's start this blessing project. We read in 3 John verse 2 that the apostle wished above all things that we would prosper and be in health even as our soul prospered. But how are you going to know if you're prospering or not? How will you know if this blessing project is actually being fulfilled in your life? You need information for that. You need records for that. If someone said that they were going to run a business without keeping any financial records, you would think that that person was crazy. But most Americans run their family firm exactly that way. They have no real idea beyond the bills that come in of what they have, what they owe, where their money's going. They don't know any of this stuff. Record keeping and a proper budget are essential if you will be able to follow the principles of Christian finance we're discussing in this series. Christ tells us in Luke 14:28, "For which of you intending to build a tower sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it?" The basic principle behind budgeting is that if you don't write it down, it never happened. As the saying goes, out of sight is out of mind. And you don't need fancy software apps for this. There's many of them out there that can help you. A piece of paper or a notebook will do just as well. In fact, if you're just now starting to manage your finances, I don't want you to waste time learning how to use a new app. As you go through the process, you'll need help making it work, and then you can get a fancy app that will help you manage your growing wealth. But the reality is that right now, you just need information. That's what you need. When you write something down, it's real. Like if you spent $1 at a vending machine for a bag of chips that really just had a few chips in it, that's a pretty stupid thing to do. But you're going to forget about it. Now, if you have to write down that you did this and record it, and that record is going to stay forever, and that it's going to be audited by your spouse, I mean, that's real. Chances are next time you're tempted to do that, you're going to stop. So your budget must be realistic, and it must stay well below your income. As we're going to see after the next few sections, your budget will most likely be based on about 80% of your take-home income, never more than this. And if you have any debts, one of your budget categories will be debt repayment to get rid of that as soon as possible. These budgeting principles are true if you make $50,000 a year or if you make $5 million a year. If you spend more than you make, you will be behind. You need to figure out, in order to make a budget, you need to basically figure out what are your expense categories. Generally, they're going to be something like housing, utilities, food, giving, recreation, transportation or gas, things like this. But be real. An unrealistic budget will be impossible to maintain. And then that will be your excuse to give up and go back to your old habits. Think about it like this. Like for myself, if I were to say, you know what, we're going to budget this month, $50 for groceries. But I know that for my household, we're not going to be able to survive on that. Then I can put it in the budget, but it's not going to be a realistic budget. And I'm going to give up on it because I'm going to keep breaking this budget. So this is something you have to think about. And if you're married, then this process needs to be done by you both together. The fact that you have to do this with someone else is often a reason that couples don't want to have the conversation. But statistically, money problems are the #1 reason for marriage problems. You need to have this conversation and come to a decision as a couple about the priorities of your household. And then you both need to be committed to that and hold each other accountable to it. Throughout Scripture, when the Lord has something important to tell his people, he informs his prophets to write it down. A record needs to be maintained. Scripture also informs us that books of records of our works are maintained in heaven and will be reviewed as our cases come before the throne of God's justice. I mean, what is your record going to say? Financial analysis cannot occur without accurate records. As you maintain a budget from month to month, you'll start seeing how your priorities are reflected in your financial habits. And in this way, you will get wisdom. And wisdom leads to riches. Proverbs 24, 3-4. Through wisdom is a house built, and by understanding is it established. And by knowledge shall the chambers be filled with all precious and pleasant riches.